Okay, we are asked to graph the following function, y equals sine of x minus pi over 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of analyze this first, and then we'll graph it. Because once we analyze it, we're going to dissect the function and understand piece by piece how to draw the graph. So the first thing I'm going to note here is the phase shift. So what is the phase shift involved here? Well, the phase shift involved is that it is moving pi over 4 units to the right. Okay, so pi over 4 units right. All right, and that's given by this right here on the inside. Remember, it always moves opposite of the sine. Well, I noticed that there's nothing written in front of the x, so we're going to assume, well, we don't need to assume, it's implied that it's 1. So the period then is going to be just simply 2 pi, the same as the parent sine. Okay, why? Because our k value here is 1. Okay, all right. So the other thing to note is the amplitude. The amplitude of this graph is 1 because there's a 1 implicitly in front of the word sine. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to do is calculate the tick marks. Okay, so the tick marks. All right, and what do I mean by tick marks? Well, the tick marks are those cardinal points on the graph where it hits 1, where it hits 0, where it hits -1, and so forth. So how do you figure that out? Well, to find those marks, you take the period, 2 pi, and you divide it by 4. So what do we get? We get pi over 2. All right, so each tick mark will be pi over 2 or 2 pi over 4 units, and we'll see which one will be advantageous for us. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start off with the original domain of the parent, 0 to 2 pi, and we're going to write in our translation, which is x minus pi over 4. So again, it's going from 0 to 2 pi. All right, we're going to do the phase shift by adding pi over 4 to both sides. Okay, so we add pi over 4 here and pi over 4 here. So this gives us our new domain for our graph. So the graph in this case is going to go from pi over 4 to, let's see here, 2 pi plus pi over 4, 9 pi over 4. All right, if you do that simple addition of fractions, you'll figure that out. All right, so we're going to start at pi over 4 and we're going to go to 9 pi over 4. All right, now each of these tick marks, if I start at pi over 4, all right, then I'm going to add pi over 2, but I think it's just easier to leave it as 2 pi over 4. So we're going to add 2 pi over 4. So our first mark, okay, because remember we're going to go from pi over 4, we'll start at pi over 4. The next mark is going to be at 3 pi over 4, okay. So let me box these in here because these are the points we're going to notate on our graph. All right, and then we're going to go from 3 pi over 4 and we're going to add 2 pi. Okay, so what do we get? 5 pi over 4, okay. And then, that's our next mark, 5 pi over 4, we're going to yet again add another 2 pi over 4. And what do we get? 7 pi over 4. All right. And we've got that right there. And then we have 7 pi over 4 plus another 2 pi over 4. And what do we get? 9 pi over 4, where we needed to end up based on our domain. All right, so we actually have enough information to go about graphing this one. All right, so I'm going to leave that information there at the top. Okay, those are the marks we're going to be making. All right, now nothing else has changed for this graph. So let's count some units. Let's say, I don't know, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units, I suppose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units should represent 1. All right, and 5 units down should represent -1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right about there. All right, now let's count every 2 units to represent our pi over 4. All right, or our 2 pi over 4 in this case. I'm sorry, our pi over 2. So let's see. We start at 0. All right, and we're going to go 2 spaces. All right, and we're going to say, well, this is going to be pi over 4. all right, and move 2 spaces over, all right, and actually it's a bigger gap than that, but that's okay, than the original gap here, but that's okay. We're just doing this conceptually. All right, the next thing we should write is 3 pi over 4 because that's our next step on the tick mark. All right, 3 pi over 4, and then followed by that 5 pi over 4, and then followed by that we have what? 7 pi over 4, and then finally 9 pi over 4. All right, so our graph is kind of shifted pi over 4 units. So instead of starting at 0, it's still going to start at 0, but it's going to be 0 at pi over 4. At 3 pi over 4, it will hit 1, okay, because remember this is the sine graph. At 5 pi over 4, it hits 0. At 7 pi over 4, it will hit -1. And at 9 pi over 4, it hits 0 yet again. And then we just play this game here of connect the dots. Okay, so we connect the dots right there. All right, and there we have it. All right, our translation. So again, this is a little bit modified because technically each 2 spaces was 2 pi over 4. So I just need to make that small little note that, you know, sometimes they'll put in like a squiggly line here that we're cutting off something. So this 2 spaces actually right here at the beginning represents only pi over 4 units, but after that it represents 2 pi over 4. So it's not exactly drawn to scale, but this is the whole concept. You start at pi over 4 and then you increment up by 2 pi's over 4. All right. So this is a little word on how to graph a phase shift. All right. As always, I hope this video was helpful. And remember, like and subscribe.